You might have seen this kind of projected holograms in many movies, and let's create this in DaVinci Resolve Fusion. And also do stick until to the end of the video, because I'm going to show an interesting tool that's not much talked about, and this is an apt example for explaining the tool. So let's get started. Okay, now I have opened DaVinci Resolve and let's jump into the Fusion page. And let's add a background mode. Now we've got the media out. Let's set it aside for a moment. Let's import the Shark FBX along with its texture. And let's weave it so it's huge. And let's reduce the size of it to somewhere around 0.1, like so. And now let's create a P emitter and a P render, and set the P emitter's region to a mesh. And let's connect this FBX mesh to P emitter and set it to surface, so that we can generate particles of the shark on the surface. And now let's create about, say, around 1000 particles, or maybe let's go even higher. Let's create around 10,000 particles. And let me set a keyframe. Let's move a frame forward and set this to 0, so that throughout the timeline the particles will be around 10,000. Now let's add a camera 3D. Let's weave it. Let me make the weaver bigger. So now we have the camera. But let's animate the camera. I add a renderer 3D. Like so. And let me quickly animate the camera. Alright, now that I have animated the camera, you can see the animation, and let's proceed. So now let's create another shape 3D, and now you can see it's a plane. Let's create it as a sphere. Let's make it huge, say about 200. And let's enable the wireframe mode and increase the subdivisions to 100 and the height subdivisions to 100 as well. So now we have this shape. Let's add a displace 3D. Now in the displace 3D, set the channel to position POS and set the mode to absolute. Now you have this renderer 3D. Connect this renderer 3D to displace 3D, and in the renderer you go into the output channels and enable the world position. So you'll get something like this. Now this is the rays that's coming out of that projector. And now that we have got this, let's add another, or rather let's just copy this and Command Shift V to make it an instance of that renderer, and let's render this. Now since this is a different renderer, and let's add a merge 3D And let me put this down here, and let me connect this camera to this merge 3D. And now let's connect these two renderers like so, and you get something like this. Let's increase the gain of the shark so that it's more visible, like so. And this is fine, and we want this projection to be longer, so let's select the shark FBX mesh and let's move it a bit higher. Like so, and oops. Okay, maybe I'll bring down the camera instead. This is fine. And in the particle emitter, rather than these dots, let's set it as the style as line. And let's increase the size of this. To say 0.5. Right, this looks good. Now we can, as usual, add things like color. Let's add a color gain. And let's increase the gain of blue, like so. And these edges are a bit too sharp. Let's blur it a bit. And that comes from this instance renderer. So let me add a blur node. And I'll increase the blur slightly, like so. And this looks good. You can also blur the shark a bit as it's too sharp. And reduce it to somewhere around 1 or maybe 0.5 should do. Yeah. Now let's play this and see how it looks. Okay, this looks good. Now let's add maybe a glow or some rays that overshoots this shark. So there's a crocodile tool called microwaves that does that. And let's reduce the length of this, and now you get rays like this. Now when you set it here, the rays goes up towards the shark, but when you move this around, or say for example I set it here, and since it's animated, when the location moves, the rays, it's no longer looking to the top. I mean, we need to connect this point to the source where the rays emerge. So that's where we use Locator 3D, and that was the tool I was talking about. So let's see how to use Locator 3D. Now let's move this a bit forward, and so we actually need this point in 3D space, but microwaves is a 2D tool. So what we do is, after we have merged the camera, here, and just before the renderer of this, let's add a locator 3D. And once we add the locator 3D and the position is set, you can actually move to whichever location you need, but this is the correct place anyway. So now that we have got the location in 3D space, now we want the center of this to latch onto that point. So let's right click on this microwaves center part and right click, connect to locator 3D position. Now it latches onto that point in 2D space. Now when you click play, it moves along with it. So let's slightly reduce this. The effect is a bit too strong, so let's reduce maybe the brightness and the length slightly. And there you have it. So if you like this video, please do consider subscribing. I have another exciting tutorial coming up shortly. So if you like this video, drop a like and do let me know in comments what you think about this video. And thank you. Have a great day.